Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm real curious about TAP. So right now, if a participant, a plan sponsor wants to exit PERS, they have two choices. One is TAP and the other is Loyalton. And they just stop paying and you just cut the benefits for the... So, but that's sort of an informal policy. That's kind of new territory. So how long has TAP been around?
When we looked, the TAP's been around, I think, we've had terminated agencies since, I think, back to 1970s, in the early 70s. So it's been around for 30, 40 years. And like I said, most of the plans that have been terminating have supplied the necessary contributions needed to terminate. East San Gabriel was I think, one of the first significant involuntary terminations that we had. All the other plans, even Loyalton was kind of unique because they actually terminated the plan and then didn't have the money to terminate it. So they had the numbers, and then they kind of were going through the process, and then for some reason they went through all the process and then said, oh, we can't pay it at the end. And at that point, our hands were tied because everything was committed up to that point. They had signed all the papers. They had basically signed the contract terminating the plan. And so Loyalton was a situation...
So maybe not to get into the weeds too much, I apologize. But you decided somewhere along the way that if someone wanted to terminate, there's this procedure.
Correct.
And so you have this rather onerous requirement to come up with a big chunk of money if you want to terminate. And so my curiosity is, you're supposed to be a service provider. You are to invest the funds and pay the beneficiaries. And somehow you've become more of a lobster trap that if a city uses you, they can't get out because the price is so expensive. And I'm kind of wondering, where did that start? Where, that you don't see that in the private sector. If I want to leave, we find out what our balance is, and we say thank you very much, and we go to the next agency or business that provides the same service, invests and pays beneficiaries. And I'm trying to get to the genesis of how we make this so difficult when someone's already in a rather traumatic financial distress.
So let me see if I can get at that. So the pension benefit has to be paid by someone, right? So it's either paid by the contributions or it's paid by investment earnings. In order for a member to receive that benefit over their lifetime, there is a payment that's required to have that.
I've sat on a retirement board for 12 years. I know how a DB plan works.
Right. So when someone moves into the terminated agency pool, we have to anticipate that the funds to pay those benefits over the lifetime, that we have some guarantee that those are going to come in appropriately. Without having that money come in, someone else will pay. It will be either socialized across the system or someone will pay for that benefit eventually. We don't.
Well, the payer is supposed to be the plan sponsor, not PERS. It's the plan sponsor.
It's the employer.
So I'm wondering, how come you feel the obligation to be like a mother to the city and say, okay, we're going to figure out how to pay your beneficiaries? And, I guess where I'm getting to, Marcia, if I could be informal, is okay, I'm a city and I want to change. I could be 37 Act, if I were a county, I have options. And I say, okay, I've put in this much money into the plan, like you asked me to. Every year you asked me to pay in so much. You determine the amount through your actuaries, and I did that. And then you've been paying out to my beneficiaries, my former employees, and you've been really good about that, and they're getting their payments. So we've got annual audited financial statements. So we got it documented, how much we paid in, how much is paid out, and how much you've earned on my portion, because it's all shared. And so I know what my balance is at the end of the day, because it's all audited. And I'm saying, why don't you just give that balance to the plan sponsor and you cut it clean? So you have no responsibility for the exiting tenant. They're gone. None of my other 3,000 tenants have to worry about it. It's over. It's like your son moving out of the house. It's like, thank you, goodbye, don't come back, or whatever, and it's all clean. But this TAP is forcing Loyaltons to finally say, we don't want to do TAP. We want to get out, and we are the plan sponsor. So you'll reduce the benefit because you feel like you're the mother, and at my terms.
Yeah, it's okay.
And then as the city, I will pay the delta.
Yeah.
I'll make sure my retirees aren't penalized.
Right.
But the decision to pay the delta is much cheaper and much more manageable than having to pay the tap. And I'm just trying to figure out where the mentality or the, because this could be so easy, but it seems so difficult. Is that
Right.
fair to ask, Mr. Trabb?
Yeah, so the current policy structure, the statutory framework around the TAP is really intended to do what Scott just explained. City of Loyalton did, I think, get a bit creative. So what they had already paid sustained the current benefit levels that those retirees were receiving, and then they decided to terminate without paying. And then for the time being, not sure how long that arrangement may last. I mean, I think that would be the concern of the members, is that this could be a temporary arrangement, and what happens 20 years out? Is that commitment still there if a new city council were to come in? So I think that is an option for cities, counties, participating employers to do. I think it would be great if that were to happen, so the member isn't impacted at the end of their career when they have very limited options of being able to return to work and make up that difference. But it's the current policy construct. But again, even with that policy construct, you can still have the creativity, I think, that City of Loyalton did in this case.
Because Loyalton could even buy a private annuity
They could.
cheaper than what you're asking for a tap. And so it seems to me your life would be easier, a lot easier, to eliminate tap and just say, okay, to the city, you went out, you're out. But you're responsible. You're the plan sponsor. It's your retirement plan. All we're doing is doing a great job of investing. I mean, you're within the benchmarks, and you're doing a great job of administering. I don't have retirees complaining
Good.
about
That's good.
they're not getting their payments on time or whatever.
Right.
But if the city says, boy, for whatever reason, we've got to try something different through this difficult, stressful period, it seems to me you would both have easier lives if you just said, cut it right, just cut it. Because right now you're creating turmoil. You got LA Works, and you got all these people that are struggling trying to figure it out, but the agencies and the residents of those agencies are responsible for those payments. That's a debt that they're responsible for. You almost put, restrictions on their titles of their properties. I mean, you could put deed restrictions, say, hey, this is a debt you have to these people that work for you while you were residing here. That's just what I would recommend,
I hear
that you think that through a little bit as a board to make it, because we're all the city is responsible. Who your plan sponsor is responsible for their, and so I think I made my point, but I just feel like you're making it too onerous for options.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.